Good morning. We'd like to call to order the special Board of Education meeting for August 4th, 2020. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation during the meeting and indicated on the agenda. Meeting is called to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Summer, roll call, please.
Mr. Flack.
Present.
Mr. Sell.
Here.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Here.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Here.
Mr. Huber.
Here.
There's really only one resolution on our agenda, and I will acknowledge Dr. Ken and Mr. Summer for this particular attachment.
Yes, this will allow us to place on the November ballots the renewal of our operating levy. So this is an emergency operating levy that's been running for quite a few years now. It makes up just less than 15% of our overall revenue for the district. So it is very important for us to have this. Again, the important message for us to share is that this is not a tax increase. So it is something that the district needs to continue operating. But we do understand the situation that the pandemic has caused for all of us in this area and feel that it's the right time to do it. We have to do it. It'll actually go into effect January of 2022. So it'll just continue that for another 5 years.
Discussion on the resolution for the emergency levy.
I just want to make sure the public is aware that this is, like you said, a renewal, not any new taxes, but we are also still deficit spending more now than ever because of the cuts we did take from the state also. We don't know what the costs are going to be to us through these unprecedented times either. So that being said, we hear you, we're not asking for more money, but we're going to have either some tough decisions to make or something coming down the road eventually.
When our income goes down, which it has, and our expenses also go up, and we're receiving the same revenue, we understand that we have to make some adjustments in the future. But right now, we're just asking for a renewal, no increased taxation. Any other comments?
I don't think you said it's 11.1 mils, correct, is what it comes down to?
10.7?
I think
I'll let
it's,
Tom respond to that.
Okay.
it's under 11, isn't it?
No, it's 11.1, I believe. Yeah,
According to the
11.1
resolution,
mils.
it says
Okay.
11.1. So that equates for every $100 valuation on your property, it's $1.11. That would go towards the school levy.
Good point, thank you.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Carl, because historically, renewal levies pass in Celina School District. I don't think I've ever heard of one that has failed.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that people remember this is a renewal, no extra money, exactly the same millage that it has been in the past, and that's important that people realize that we still need it.
And Mr. Summer, again, this levy is for operations.
That is correct.
Any explanation there needed? This is not for building, this is not for
No.
special programs, this is to operate the school district.
This is continue operating the way we've been operating, as was stated. We are deficit spending, and at some point in time, we will need to probably ask for additional funds, but at this point in time, we decided just to seek the renewal.
Good point.
If there are no more questions, I'll make a motion to pass this resolution.
I'll second.
Mr. Sell.
Yes.
Mr. Huber.
Yes.
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mr. Flack.
Yes.
Mrs. Gingrich.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And before there's an adjournment, I know, Dr. Ken, there's been questions about school starting on time, athletics. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us at this time that we haven't discussed?
the athletic season for the fall sports did get underway beginning August the 1st. So yes, football teams practicing, cross-country, volleyball, soccer, those teams are all going at it. Golf, tennis, thank you. So we have, which other one, Jen? Deb?
No, I just said I saw them this morning practicing on the way in.
Appreciate that. Certainly don't want to miss out on anybody. The band has been out there getting ready for the season as well. So having pretty good luck as far as, staying away from the COVID cases and things moving along very nicely with those programs.
At a football game, how many fans, if any, are we allowed to have?
That has not been answered yet, but you have seen the order from the governor as far as college games and pro games, no fans. But as far as the High School Athletic Association, at this point, they haven't come down with an announcement.
And I have not read it myself, but someone told me that they heard the governor's office or the health director state that athletes have to be tested before a contest. Have you heard anything to that?
That's what's there currently, so that would need to change before we would have any contest. Either that or we would have to have everybody involved go through a test and get those results back.
Which would be very
Expensive, and the time factor as well. You have some of those results taking maybe up to 7 days before you get the result back.
So we don't know whether that's going to be in place or not.
Correct.
It is currently in place, but hopefully
Right.
there's some leeway in that.
We expect that to change if we're going to still have our first game as scheduled in those contact sports. And that is just for the contact sports, not for the non-contact.
Right.
And as I understand, reading this morning, that cross-country has been taken off of the list of contact sports.
Which it should be.
I kind of wonder about that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I don't want to put you on the spot here, Ken,
Okay.
but I've been receiving quite a few phone calls. I just had some questions of my own. I guess the first one was, I thought in earlier discussions, we discussed when administration and teachers were going back to school, we're going to do all their meetings were going to be consolidated at their school buildings. Then I hear that are we going to have one big meeting with all the teachers in one facility?
Right, we're bringing them to the field house on the opening day.
Okay.
We had done that in the past in the at the lecture hall in the high school. Here we're going to pretty much have them seated, every third seat in the field house from foul line to foul line along the north side of the field house. So we'll have them social distanced there. Now the meetings that were canceled were the back to school meetings.
Okay. For the students or for the?
Those were for pretty much the teachers were there and the families, the parents came into the school
That was
buildings.
another one of my questions. I had a parent call me asking about that, and they thought it was still on. I said, I'm not sure, so I wanted to find out. So I guess for that back to school for the teachers thing, wouldn't it be possibly better just to have them do it at their own separate buildings, so we don't, say we do have one person that comes down with COVID 5 days after that, well, that's only 2 days before school starts, correct?
Correct.
Maybe. Wouldn't it be smarter just to have it separated in their own different school facilities? Is that something we could do, just have that administrator handle that, welcome back?
I'm feeling more positive than that if we're expecting all the kids and all the teachers to be back in the buildings.
Sure.
2 days later,
Yeah.
I feel comfortable about bringing them
Well, I'm just
all
saying,
in.
it's been proven that the older adults are more likely to catch it than the student. I'm not concerned about the students coming in, it's more about the teachers getting it before school starts, and then that's trying
I
for
think the
substitute teachers.
advantage, in my thinking, of having a group one is that everybody hears the same
Sure,
information.
yeah.
If there's
I
information.
I mean, I'm okay with it as long as they stay
Social
socially distanced.
Right.
And I don't know, are you having more masks and that, probably not with the, the weather, right? The heat.
I didn't follow. What was that complete
We're
question?
gonna have them wear masks at that meeting if it's not too hot. With the weather, you never know around here.
There are some, now again, because of health regulations that we can't get into with specific
Sure.
individuals, some masks are not recommended for some, but
Correct.
the rest, certainly if they feel more comfortable, they are certainly allowed to do that and wear those to that meeting. I think going back to our graduation exercise, I mean, that was well explained. You had the staff, you had the students following what we asked them to do. And I continue to believe that the staff and the students will continue to do that as we go through. And that's why we are so confident about beginning the school year on time, that we will have a positive situation, a positive scenario. So many of the kids do need to come back to school for their mental well-being. They're getting to be social with their other students in the building, that we missed out on that for 2 months, and now it's been 5 months since they've been in school. So having them come back to school, having the teachers back with each other as well, I think that's important also,
Oh, yeah.
a social
I
aspect.
can't wait to send my kid back. To go sort of along with that, we know there's exemptions in our school buildings because of the heat and not wearing masks. At what point, temperature-wise, do we go back and require it unless they have another ailment, physical ailment that they cannot wear masks?
That's a piece that we can clear with the health department. Again,
Somebody like us to have a set number on, so the public knows and the staff knows, teachers, all the staff and other employees, janitors, cafeteria workers and all that. So, another question, can you clarify a little bit? I've been informed because I'm a high school student. Can you clarify a little bit the schedule for the high school kids? How it's been rearranged and when they're getting out now or can possibly get out now?
yeah, the 7-period day for the classes, so that's all going to come first, and then after that, they'll have a cafeteria break, and then they'll do their IE in conjunction with the cafeteria, so half the students can be in the cafeteria, while the other half are doing the IE period, and then vice versa for the next.
But it's also set up that they can actually skip lunch in there. If they don't have an IE, they can leave at lunch, correct?
Right, the students that are on track with their classes, with eligibility reasons, they don't need that extra assistance.
Correct.
But also those students that ride buses are able to stay their entire day
Sure.
and still ride the buses when they exit the building.
Was that done just to eliminate the number of kids in the building at the same time, or what was the purpose of?
The main purpose, when you have nearly 800 individuals trying to have 400 at a time in the cafeteria, we didn't see that as a possibility. So that was pretty much done to give more space to the students during cafeteria times. That was
With
probably the
7
biggest
classes and
question.
then lunch, what time would lunch be?
I have that on the schedule, I don't have that
It's
memorized.
It's on the high school.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a
That's
half.
all too late.
It's like spread out over like an hour and a half or something, isn't it?
And then,
Somewhere in there.
kind of a question in relation to what Carl was asking.
They're 40 minutes per session.
Yeah.
If a child in a class shows symptoms of just an illness, it doesn't have to be COVID, just an illness, and another mother then opts to keep her child home, can they flip over to remote learning? What would be the case if I'm concerned about my son because a kid in his class is ill, so I'm gonna keep my son home?
If they want to keep them home for an extended period of time, that could be something that we possibly work out with that parent. It's going to be tough after the school year begins, so we really prefer to know that ahead of time. If they're having problems with their child, if they're having problems feeling that their child will be safe at school, and they prefer to have that for family health reasons, to put them on remote learning, they can contact the building principal or myself, and we can add them on the remote learning. If they feel, well, they've heard somebody is sick, so they want to do that 2-week time off, I would say that's a message directly for the administrator to work that out. Our teachers are going to be using Google Classroom, so it is going to be an easier component for kids to, be off for a sickness, or if they're off for a quarantine, that they'll be able to keep up and maintain pace with their classroom.
Is part of Google Classroom a taped lesson?
It certainly can be. They can do links into Google Classroom, pull in, different things from YouTube that they made a video and they want to connect that into their Google Classroom for the kids to watch. Yes.
Do you know off the top of your head, since they closed the time period for remote learning, the numbers ended up being?
We're over 160, but actually, we closed that time so we could set up how many teaching positions we need posted. But if somebody does want to choose remote learning, they can still do that by contacting a building principal or myself.
Is there a certain, is it more in the high school, more, did you notice a difference in the ages that the parents chose remote learning, or?
Now, among our buildings, the high school has the most students because there are 4 grade levels there. So I think overall at the high school, there were just over 60 students at the high school. So that's 15 per class.
Okay.
The kindergarten class had 2 at this time. But then you think a kindergartner trying to do remote learning on a computer,
It's really tough.
Can't imagine.
yeah.
It's gonna be really tough.
With that many students at the high school, are we dedicating a specific teacher to do that with them?
Mr. Metz is working on the schedule, so we would have a content area teacher set up in each of the 4 math, science, social studies, language arts, having one period in their schedule where they're assigned to that. We are using the CVLA program, the NOVA online program, so they're pretty much just checking with the students, answering questions.
So there's not gonna be direct interaction at a certain time of every day with every student. It's gonna be.
At the high school, no, because that curriculum is an online curriculum.
Yeah.
Grades K through 8, it will be more of that relationship with Google Classroom.
Okay. All right. And the lower grades, like you said, is there gonna be a dedicated teacher, or is it gonna be set the same way where you have a teacher that has, every teacher or whatever in that area will have one period where they handle that for their students?
We're looking by the numbers right now that kindergarten and first grade, we would have one dedicated teacher. Second and third grade, there'd be one teacher. There's enough at 4th grade that we'd have one teacher 4th grade. And we are looking at doing one team that would be working with students in class and students online for grades 5 through 8.
Are we still set up to take temperatures as students enter the buildings?
Correct, yes.
What, as far as technology goes, are we prepared in the event that Governor DeWine comes out and shuts us down to give every single student in our district a Chromebook?
The ones that request it, yes, we do have enough technology, and we have more on order that we're waiting to come in as well.
How much, and maybe you don't know this, how much is being put into, okay, we know there's an eventuality that the governor does step in, we don't know that that will happen, but it might, is any effort being put into talking with our students about some of that so we don't hit a brick wall like he does last year, like, hey, by the way, Monday you're not coming back? Are we gonna plan in any eventualities where teachers are saying, or is that too difficult to try and plan for 2 scenarios right now? We just gotta plan the best we can to have students back.
I think we do have that in the back of our minds, but the one piece that we definitely want to let the parents know about is that they do go online, fill out the final forms, registration. For most of the parents, it's pretty much just a repeat from last year. Is this information correct? So it's a pretty quick process, but one point in that process is agreeing to the online, that they are agreeing to the parameters of, doing the online pieces, hooking with, working with the technology. So they need to do that approval. If we have all the students and the parents sign off on that to begin with, we can get the electronic tech device in the students' hands right at the start of the school year. So if we do get closed down a month from now, the students are used to working with these.
And that's gonna be a part of the curriculum now, correct? They're working in the classroom on the Google Classroom.
Correct.
With that piece of hardware. So it won't be such a stun when they go back home.
Correct.
They have to do it. If that happens, hopefully it won't. You never know what the governor's gonna say. So, I guess along with that also, just questioning whether, are we providing, if an employee requests it, like a teacher requests it, are we providing any sort of like that plastic barrier stuff, like you have on your front counter, is that something that's paid for by the federal grant? That we can purchase some of those and get those for the classroom for their
We
desks?
have not received that federal money though, but we are already spending it to, I mean, you can't wait.
Right.
So we are expecting that money to come in. But again, we did have the $573,000 that was cut from the state. So when the feds come in and say, well, here's $180,000 to use
Yeah.
to purchase, but it's got to be for PPE things. Each of our buildings, we are ordering in a 55-gallon drum of hand sanitizer. The teachers in each of the classrooms, there'll be a gallon jug of hand sanitizer with a pump. So we'll have that available in all the classrooms, a disinfectant spray, paper towels to help wipe things down as well. We're getting the misters that we can use and mist when the students aren't there. You know, it takes less than 10 minutes to dry. So we're
So I guess to answer the question, are we allowing them to request a barrier and we're gonna pay for it, or?
We've ordered 2,000 of the individual students' desk,
Okay.
the sneeze guards there, and then on the reading tables, those dividers you see kind of with the acrylic.
Okay.
We've ordered 400 of those.
Okay. So those will be implemented in place. It's not gonna be wide open desks anymore. It's gonna be that acrylics around.
I think that sounds like good planning.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like the very best we can do. I mean, none of it's gonna be perfect, but that certainly sounds like it's well thought out.
And Dr. Kent, some districts are doing the alternating schedules for students. So I go this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the next week I go Tuesday, Thursday, with the idea, I guess, of reducing the student population in the building by 50%. So instead of having a classroom of 25, I've got 12. Is there a feeling here among administrators and yourself as to which you would prefer over remote learning, the alternating student structure? Would you prefer, is one recommended over the other by superintendents in the region? Or?
Yeah, that is called a blended learning format, and we are going with a remote learning, which means either we're in session or we're out.
So the blended,
Our plan is to have the kids here 5 days a week, unless we are ordered that we need to close down. Then we'll have the students at home 5 days a week until we're allowed to come back.
okay.
But we do have that option for parents, if they would rather their students start the school year for the first semester, stay online for their learning to start off the first semester. They can contact either the building administrator or myself and be added to the spreadsheet.
Now, those students that are doing in the high school that are doing the remote learning, are they able to participate in extracurriculars then?
Yes, they are.
By law, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Just seems kind of contradictory. That you don't want them in that environment, but on the other hand, you want them in that environment. I guess I just.
I understand, and I
And
certainly
that's fine. I mean,
understand
I
it's.
realize that we need to offer that to them, but I guess I just don't understand the thinking there. Why you would keep them home if you are gonna turn around and put them in that same environment with kids that have been in school. I just don't get it, that's all. But that's,
And you never
Yeah,
know.
you see
Neither here nor
plenty on
there.
social media, you've seen it in the newspaper as well.
yeah.
Parents do have a difficult decision to make.
I agree.
Do I want them online or do I want them?
Right.
You know, they're torn. I mean, we're torn
Yes.
with our decisions and they're torn with theirs.
Yes.
And whatever decision we make is,
So we can have our
Controversial at
learners
best.
in extracurriculars or, even at the younger levels, like, I mean, what about like where they're getting ready, excuse me, at Christmas time with their programs? I mean, are they participating in that type of stuff if they're at home?
I haven't had any request on those. We have had the request for choir and band.
Okay,
So we are going to try to work with those kids so they can still participate, maybe using some Zoom. Some of them feel that they can still come in for, you know, like the band practices that are outside of the school day and still participate in that. But
okay.
other than that, stay
So
online.
you've had nothing from the younger group saying, you know, I want my kid to participate in this, but they aren't gonna be there to practice or,
No.
okay.
if there's no fans at a football game, would there be a band performance? I mean, there's all kinds of questions.
If a tree falls in the woods, Bill.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
No, but band is more than just high school band. I mean, when it starts in fifth
Fifth
grade,
grade.
it's
Right.
instructional.
But it's performance-based, you know, they
Right.
want to play in front of people.
Oh, of
You know,
course.
so do
they do.
football players, so.
And Chuck Sellers wants them to. He wants to take on that field.
I want to point out one concern I do have. I understand we're providing the online learning. Do we have a point where if the student's falling behind to a certain point? Because I don't know if a lot of parents know this or not, but when your student's online learning, you're going to be the teacher. And you're going to have to do what's needed.
Very good
So
point.
if that doesn't occur, these students are falling behind, at what point does our staff, our teachers, get to bring it up to our administration and say, hey, this kid is failing, not doing their work, maybe not even doing anything?
Well, and
At
if
what
they're-
point? We're
if
not gonna
they're
do like we
doing-
did last year
If
where.
If they're doing the CVLA learning, like when my son did it, he was kind of on his own, and occasionally they'd say, hey, you need to be up here, you need to have this much done by now, but otherwise, he stayed home and did it. I mean, it was just
You know,
pretty
I'm not
much.
concerned about the older kids. The older kids
Yeah,
are
they'll
able
be
enough to
okay.
handle themselves.
Okay.
I'm concerned with the younger kids, pre-K through
Okay.
6 or 6,
Yeah, it's gonna be hard.
That are
Part of the remote learning plan that we'll have at the next board meeting for you to consider for approval, it includes, and one of the key components is attendance. So that the teachers will need to follow up with attendance, and what do you mean by attendance? Students will need to be logging in every day. They'll need to be completing work every day. If they're not logging in and not completing work, they're counted as absent.
Okay?
So, you know, absent goes by a number of hours, so if they're missing and not completing, we have to call in the absent intervention team, have that meeting. If we have to make a referral to the prosecuting attorney, we will have to do that, and I know in time that comes back against the parent. So there are those pieces that we do need to have attendance. We will be following up on that.
At what time and point does it come to the suspension of that student? If they not
A
complete?
certain number of hours, I think, from that.
Right, but you also have the progress reports that'll be going out. You'll have the grade cards that'll still be going out, even though they're online, they'll still be receiving those documents.
Yeah.
So again, the student does have to pass their classes in order to move on to the next grade and be promoted.
And didn't the governor give the class of 2020 until September 1st to complete all of their academic requirements? And I think the last time that Mr. Metz spoke to us, there were quite a number from the high school seniors that still had not completed that. Is that correct?
I believe that number is less than 12 at this point.
So back to what Carl was saying, are the parents, is that explained to the parents when they say, I want to put my student or my child in remote learning? Are they told there is attendance? If they're not logging in, it could get to the point where they're reported to an attendance officer. You know, I mean, were they explained, was all this explained to them so they understand that ultimately, I mean, they have a huge responsibility in this?
There will be a
remote learning?
letter from myself and also one from the building principal that will go home to each of those families that did choose the remote learning. So they are aware and understand.
Are
Yes.
all the county schools basically doing the same thing we are then? Is Coldwater, are they doing, okay, remote learning versus in school? Same
I
as-
think percentage-wise, their percentage of people that are choosing to do remote learning is minuscule compared to ours.
But they're on the same plan, either you do one or you do the other. They're not doing blended in any of those schools or
That's-
whatever. We're all in the same,
Yes.
basically doing the same curriculum.
I don't understand, what's a better way to say it than understand? Yeah, all the county schools are looking to do the remote learning and not a blended learning
So
plan.
they're either in or they're out.
So if a student logs in and then for attendance purposes, we check him off that he's logged in, how long does he or she have to be logged in a day?
Which grade level are we speaking about?
High school.
That makes a difference.
Okay, so.
So if they're in a high school with the program that they're on, you can actually see the progress that they're making in completing their work. So let's say they log on and and then they switch on their computer, go and start playing electronic, different games.
You can tell.
You can tell. If they're not making any progress,
Okay.
correct, you can
Is
tell.
it similar to that with the younger ones, say, a second grader? I mean, how does that work?
Now, again,
That's gonna be
a lot of those will be connected, the teacher will be doing Zooms, they'll be doing videos. In the Google Classroom, the kids can actually take a test and do it right on the Google Classroom, so it's not paper and pencil has to be exchanged. They can do that right with the technology. So that'll be more and more, you know, the teacher and the student are making actual contact instead of the high school teacher checking to see the progress that they're making on the online curriculum.
Are we set up at any point to do streaming of the actual classroom for the students in that grade?
Yes, with every teacher will have a Zoom account, so they all received those. Was that just yesterday? I received my Zoom account yesterday as well, so they're
So
able
if
to
they wanted
do
to,
that
they could set up,
streaming.
they could just stream that lesson as they teach it
Yes,
for that student.
correct.
And it'd be good for them to be on to get that interaction and get some.
And we're seeing that especially for the teams in grades 5 through 8, that as the students following their class,
Yeah.
that they'll be able to do that,
Okay.
that exact thing, that those teachers will be Zooming for those students at home.
I just have a big concern about some of these kids are gonna get left behind because
They sure are.
they don't have that support.
Very important.
Absolutely, because it's gonna be hard for some of the parents to help
Look at
them.
the number that graduated from high school.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the early run of parents who are opting their kids out are gonna be more probably proactive versus if the entire district went online. Because they know what they're opting into, so they've likely had to weigh that cost. And my hope now,
A percentage of them, yes, but
has the state said anything about testing as far as, because that's been one of my concerns is how is it, how is the district held accountable when you have 40 high schoolers doing this online thing and testing? Have we heard anything about that as far as what that'll be this year?
I can say what I expect to happen, but
Yep.
I might be erroneous in doing that because people will take that as gospel, so I don't want to say that. Going back to Bill's question in regards to the seniors and what happened with their requirements, I would expect we'll probably see something very similar from the state, especially with, it looks like the Big 8 schools are going to start the year remote learning. So I would expect that probably to come through the state as well, that probably the testing for graduation requirements very likely might be out again. They have released the student growth measures for the teachers. Again, won't be something that's used in their contracts or their evaluations. So we do know that at this point.
So has the ODE come out and said that they prefer or recommend remote over blended?
No, that's an individual school district choice.
So they're not encouraging one over the other?
No.
For those that don't know, what is a Big 8 school, what are those?
The Big 8 schools would be the Dayton, the Cleveland, the Youngstown, Cincinnati, Toledo, Columbus, thank you. Yep.
All right, thank you.
The 8 schools are the highest student population.
Okay.
I'm hoping that if the governor decides to make any decisions, I'm hoping that he'll use some common sense and let the districts, that area and that health department determine what's best for their district. Because they can't be comparing rural communities to the Big 8
Right.
and following one path.
You talk about the Big 8, but there are more than 600 other school districts across the state, so excellent point.
And he kept talking about county by county comparison, instead of just making a blanket decision for the state.
Yeah, which should be left to the local health districts, not the state health district.
Well, if there's nothing more,
Any other questions? I got all mine now, so I'm good.
thank you, everyone. I think we stand adjourned.